I'm Abigail, 28, standing in my bridal suite surrounded by scattered rose petals and champagne flutes. 6 months of planning led to this perfect day at the lakeside venue. Then I hear raised voices outside. My bridesmaids form a human barrier at the door, which suddenly flies open. There stands my sister Mackenzie in a white wedding gown that looks suspiciously like the one I designed. Behind her, my mother scowls at my shocked expression. "Abby, stop overreacting. It's just a dress." But this wasn't just about today. This was the final act in a lifelong pattern of betrayal. Before I dive into this unbelievable story, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop your location in the comments below, hit that like button if you've ever dealt with family drama, and subscribe to join our community of real-life storytellers. Now, let me take you back to where this all began. Growing up as the older sister to Mackenzie wasn't easy. From the moment she was born when I was 2, the family dynamic shifted dramatically. My parents, Karen and Richard, doted on their precious baby girl while I became the responsible one, expected to set a good example and often sacrifice my own wants and needs. The pattern was established early and remained consistent throughout our childhood. Mackenzie would take my things without asking. My favorite stuffed bear disappeared into her room for weeks. When I'd complain to my parents, they'd dismiss my feelings. "She's just little, Abby, don't be selfish." When she scribbled across my science project the night before it was due, causing me to stay up until 2 a.m. redoing it, Mom said, "You should have kept it where she couldn't reach it." By 3rd grade, I learned to hide my most treasured possessions in a locked box under my bed. By 6th grade, I'd stopped inviting friends over because Mackenzie would inevitably create some drama that would ruin the playdate. One particular incident stands out: my 12th birthday party. Mom had finally agreed to let me have 5 friends over for a sleepover. Halfway through the evening, Mackenzie, then 10, burst into tears because she felt left out. Instead of helping her find something else to do, my parents made me include her. She proceeded to tell embarrassing stories about me to my friends, and when I got upset, Mom pulled me aside and scolded me for making a scene at my own party. School became my sanctuary. I threw myself into academics and extracurriculars, places where Mackenzie couldn't follow and ruin things. I maintained a 4 gigapascals, earned a full scholarship to State University, and graduated with honors in business administration. Yet at my graduation dinner, my parents spent most of the time discussing Mackenzie's upcoming dance recital. It was during college that I met James. We shared a marketing class junior year, and he asked me to partner on a project. James came from a warm, supportive family, something I'd never experienced. His parents, Diana and Robert, welcomed me from the first time he brought me home for Thanksgiving. It was jarring to see how normal families interacted, how they celebrated each other's successes instead of competing. After 5 years together, including 3 years of living together in our small apartment downtown, James proposed during a weekend trip to the mountains. It was intimate and perfect, just the two of us with the spectacular sunset as our backdrop. I was ecstatic but immediately anxious about involving my family in wedding plans. My fears were validated at our engagement dinner. James and I invited both sets of parents to a nice restaurant downtown. His parents brought champagne and heartfelt cards. My parents arrived 20 minutes late, with Mackenzie in tow, though she wasn't invited to this particular dinner. When James announced the engagement, his parents toasted us and shared how happy they were to welcome me to their family. My mother's first response was, "Well, I guess you beat your sister to the altar." Then came the first clear betrayal in what would become a pattern. As I showed my engagement ring to the table, Mackenzie reached for the wine bottle to refill her glass and accidentally knocked it over directly onto my cream-colored dress. As red wine spread across my lap, she offered a quick, "Oops, sorry," before continuing to talk about the guy she'd just started dating. The conversation shifted to her love life for the remainder of the evening, while I sat in a wine-stained dress, my moment thoroughly hijacked. James squeezed my hand under the table. A silent communication wedge developed. His eyes said what we both knew: this was just the beginning. We decided to announce our engagement to the extended family at my grandparents' annual Christmas gathering. James and I discussed it beforehand, and he suggested we keep things low-key to avoid creating another opportunity for drama. I agreed, but held out hope that in front of the entire family, my sister and parents might actually behave appropriately. The gathering started pleasantly enough. My grandparents were genuinely thrilled, my aunts and uncles offered congratulations, and for a brief moment, I felt normal family joy. Then my 19-year-old cousin Emma announced she was also engaged to her college boyfriend. Mackenzie, who'd been quietly seething since our announcement, suddenly burst into tears. Is everyone getting married before me? I'm going to be the only single one left. She ran from the room, and predictably, my mother chased after her. Dad shifted uncomfortably in his seat before muttering, "I should check on them," and disappeared as well. My new fiancé was left standing awkwardly with my extended family, while Emma apologized profusely for her timing. Jameis' jaw was tight, but he maintained his composure. "No need to apologize," he told Emma. "Congratulations to you too." But I could see the concern in his eyes as he watched my family dynamic unfold in real time. His parents had witnessed the scene too. That night, Diana pulled me aside as we were leaving. "Sweetie, I hope you know that's not normal or okay," she said gently. "Your engagement is something to be celebrated, not overshadowed." I nodded, fighting back tears. "I know. It's always been this way." "Well," she said firmly, "you have us now too, and we couldn't be happier about that." Despite my reservations, I knew wedding planning would have to involve my family to some degree. James and I settled on a spring wedding, giving us about 10 months to plan. When the time came to select my bridal party, I agonized over whether to ask Mackenzie to be my maid of honor. Rachel, my best friend since college, was the obvious choice, but I knew excluding Mackenzie would create a nuclear-level family meltdown. "Are you sure about this?" Rachel asked when I told her my plan to make Mackenzie maid of honor, with Rachel as a bridesmaid. "I don't trust her to handle the responsibilities, let alone not sabotage things." "I don't really have a choice," I explained. "If I don't ask her, my mother will make my life hell. Maybe if I give Mackenzie an important role, she'll rise to the occasion." Rachel looked skeptical but supportive. "It's your wedding, Abby. I'm here for you either way." But the second she starts pulling her usual stunts, I'm stepping in. When I asked Mackenzie, her reaction caught me off guard. She squealed with excitement, hugged me tightly, and immediately started talking about bridal shows and Pinterest boards. For a brief, hopeful moment, I wondered if I'd misjudged the situation. Maybe she was genuinely happy for me? That illusion lasted exactly 2 weeks. I'd researched venues extensively and fallen in love with Lakeside Gardens, a picturesque venue with a ceremony spot overlooking the water. They had exactly 1 date available during our desired month. I asked Mackenzie to call and book it while I was in an all-day work conference, giving her the exact details and even emailing her the deposit information. When I called her that evening to confirm, she sounded strangely evasive. "About the venue," she began. "They called back and said they're actually booked on that date. Some kind of misunderstanding." "What? That's impossible." "I spoke to Susan yesterday, and she confirmed it was available." "Well, maybe someone booked it this morning before I called." "These places go fast, Abby. Don't be so controlling." "Well, find somewhere else." A sinking feeling settled in my stomach. I thanked her curtly and hung up, then immediately called the venue myself. Susan, the coordinator, answered. "Hi, Susan. This is Abigail Miller. I'm calling about the May 15th date we discussed yesterday." "Oh, Abigail. Yes, I've been holding that date for you. Did your sister reach out like you mentioned?" I haven't received a call or email. The betrayal hit like a physical blow. Mackenzie had lied. She never called. And with that realization, I understood this wouldn't be the last mishap ID encounter. With Lakeside Gardens now booked by another couple, they'd snatched up the date during my hesitation. James and I were scrambling to find a new venue. Rachel immediately stepped up, making calls and setting up tours on my behalf. James' sister Taylor, who worked in event planning, reached out to her industry contacts. "What about Mountain View Terrace?" Taylor suggested during an emergency wedding planning session at our apartment. "They had a cancellation for June 12th. It's a bit later than you wanted, but the views are spectacular." Rachel pulled up photos on her laptop. "This could actually be better than the lake venue, Abby." I was grateful for their support but still upset about what had happened. With some encouragement from James, I decided to confront Mackenzie directly. I invited her to coffee, determined to have a calm, adult conversation. The coffee shop was busy enough to provide ambient noise, but quiet enough for a serious talk. Mackenzie arrived 15 minutes late, as usual. "I spoke with Susan at Lakeside Gardens," I said after she'd settled with her elaborate iced coffee concoction. "She said you never called them." Mackenzie's face went through several expressions: surprise, calculation, then crumpling into tears. "I was going to, I swear, but then I started thinking that venue wasn't really you, it seemed so basic. I was researching better options for you because I want your day to be special. That wasn't your decision to make. That venue meant something to me and James. Why are you attacking me?" Her voice rose, attracting glances from nearby tables. "I'm trying to help you. This is so typical, Abby. You've always been so mean to me, even when I'm just trying to be a good sister." Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. It was my mother. "Abigail, what are you doing to your sister? She's crying in the middle of a coffee shop." Somehow, Mackenzie had texted her during our conversation. "Mom, she lied about calling the venue. We lost our date because of her. I'm sure there was just a misunderstanding. You know how sensitive Mackenzie is. She's really trying her best to help with your wedding. You need to be more appreciative and stop bullying her." The familiar feeling of invalidation washed over me. Later that evening, as James held me while I cried, I seriously considered canceling the big wedding altogether. "We could elope," James suggested. "Go to Hawaii, just the two of us. Get married on the beach at sunset." The idea was tempting. So tempting. "Don't let them win," Diana said when we mentioned the idea at Sunday dinner at their house. "This is your day, Abigail. Your family's challenges shouldn't dictate your choices." Robert nodded in agreement. "Besides, we've been looking forward to seeing our only son get married. At least consider a small ceremony with people who genuinely support you both." Their unwavering support strengthened my resolve. James and I decided to proceed with wedding plans, but with a significant strategy adjustment. Mackenzie would be given minimal responsibilities and no solo tasks. The next hurdle was wedding dress shopping. I'd made appointments at 3 boutiques and reluctantly included Mackenzie and my mother, alongside Rachel, Taylor, and Diana. At the first shop, Mackenzie kept pulling dresses that were either wildly out of my price range or completely wrong for my body type mermaid styles that emphasized my hips or ball gowns that overwhelmed my petite frame. "Try this one," she insisted, holding up a dress with a plunging neckline and excessive beading. "You need something dramatic to compensate for your plain features." Diana's eyebrows shot up, and Rachel coughed loudly to cover her outrage. I ignored the comment and selected a few gowns based on the consultant's recommendations. After trying on several options, I emerged in a simple A-line dress with delicate lace overlay that made me feel beautiful and confident. "Oh," my mother said flatly, "it's very simple." "I think that's the style now, Karen," Diana interjected. "Elegant minimalism." "She looks stunning." Mackenzie examined her nails. "It's your choice, obviously. But people might think you couldn't afford something nicer." I bought the dress that day, with Diana insisting on covering half as an early wedding gift. The third betrayal surfaced a month later, when our florist called to confirm the updated color scheme. "I'm not sure what you mean," I told her. "We're going with dusty blue and silver." "That's not what your maid of honor said." She stopped by last week with revised inspiration photos. "She said you'd changed your mind and now want hot pink and orange. She even put down a deposit on different centerpieces." My hands shook as I hung up. This wasn't a misunderstanding or oversight. This was deliberate sabotage. I called an emergency meeting with Rachel and Taylor. "She's actively trying to ruin your wedding," Rachel said, pacing my living room. "You need to fire her as maid of honor. If I do that, my entire family might boycott the wedding." "Would that really be so bad?" Taylor asked quietly. The question hung in the air, forcing me to confront a painful reality. Maybe it wouldn't be. Rachel and Taylor took charge of planning my bridal shower, deliberately keeping Mackenzie out of the loop on most details. They chose a garden-themed event at a charming local tea house, inviting close friends and female relatives from both families. The color scheme matched our wedding plans, with tasteful, dusty blue and silver decorations adorning the private room. I arrived to find everything beautifully arranged, with Diana helping to set out the final touches. The first hour was perfect, delicious tea sandwiches, a touching slideshow of James and me that Taylor had created, and a fun game where guests shared marriage advice. Then, Mackenzie arrived, an hour late, making a dramatic entrance with an enormous gift wrapped in bright pink paper. "Sorry I'm late," she announced loudly. "I can't believe no one reminded me about the time. I nearly missed it entirely." The mood shifted instantly. Rachel shot me a worried glance as Mackenzie surveyed the decorations with narrowed eyes. "Interesting choice of venue," she commented, running her finger along the edge of the tablecloth. "When did you decide on this place?" "I thought we were doing it at Mom and Dad's house. We finalized plans about 3 weeks ago," Rachel replied evenly. "I sent out the invitations with all the details." "Well, I wasn't consulted," Mackenzie said, her voice rising. "As maid of honor, I should have been included in planning my sister's bridal shower." Diana stepped forward with a serene smile. "Why don't we get back to celebrating Abby?" We were just about to open gifts, but Mackenzie wasn't finished. She pulled out her phone, thumbing through messages. "I don't have a single text from either of you about this. You deliberately excluded me." My mother, who had been quietly sipping her tea until this point, set down her cup with a sharp clink. "Abigail, did you allow your friends to exclude your sister from planning your shower?" The room went silent. 20 pairs of eyes shifted between my mother and me. "Mom," I said carefully, "Rachel and Taylor handled the details because Mackenzie has been busy with work." "A diplomatic lie, that wasn't your decision to make," my mother replied, using my own words from the coffee shop confrontation against me. "Mackenzie is your maid of honor. This was her responsibility." My Aunt Judith, my mother's youngest sister, tried to intervene. "Karen, perhaps this isn't the time." "No, it absolutely is the time," my mother insisted. "Abby has been deliberately pushing her sister out of her wedding planning, and I'm tired of it. Apologize to your sister. Now." The demand hung in the air like a slap. I looked around the room at the uncomfortable faces of my guests. At Rachel's outrage, at Taylor's shock, at Diana's quiet fury. 28 years of accommodating, acquiescing, and apologizing crashed down on me. "No," I said, the single word feeling foreign and powerful on my tongue. "I will not apologize for having a nice bridal shower that wasn't hijacked by Mackenzie's drama. I will not apologize for wanting one day, my day, to be about me instead of managing her feelings. And most of all, I will not apologize for finally setting boundaries after a lifetime of being told my feelings don't matter as much as hers." My mother's face went white, then red. "How dare you speak to me that way? After everything we've done for you." "What exactly have you done for me, Mom?" Named a single accomplishment of mine without immediately pivoting to Mackenzie? Defended me when she ruined my things? Supported my choices without making them about her? Mackenzie burst into theatrical sobs. "See how she treats me? She's always been jealous of me. She's trying to ruin her own bridal shower just to make me look bad." The absurdity of the accusation hung in the air for a beat before my cousin Emma let out an involuntary snort of disbelief. This triggered a ripple effect, my aunts exchanging knowing looks, Jameis relatives whispering to each other, my college friends shifting uncomfortably. For the first time, I could see my family's dysfunction through outside eyes. The room had divided. Most of my aunts and cousins looked embarrassed for my mother and sister, while my grandparents and parents maintained their protective stance around the still sobbing Mackenzie. Diana stood up, her elegant posture radiating quiet authority. "I think it might be best if we took a little break. Karen, perhaps you could help Mackenzie get some fresh air while Abby opens her gifts." My mother glared at Diana, clearly recognizing the diplomatic removal for what it was. She grabbed her purse. "Come on, Mackenzie. Clearly we're not welcome here. Your sister has made her choice." They left in a swirl of wounded dignity and theatrical sniffling. My father, who had been waiting in the tea shop's lobby, having refused to go golfing with the other men, followed them out without even looking at me. The party resumed with a forced cheerfulness, but the damage was done. As guests departed, many hugged me a little tighter than usual, murmuring encouragement. "Stay strong," my normally reserved physics professor aunt whispered. "Some people never change." The following day, I discovered the fourth betrayal, and it was the most deliberate yet. Our wedding coordinator called. confusion evident in her voice. Miss Miller, I've been receiving some conflicting instructions. Your maid of honor has contacted several vendors claiming to be a co-bride and requesting significant changes to the arrangements. What kind of changes? I asked, though I already knew the answer wouldn't be good. She's asked the baker to change your cake design to include hot pink fondant flowers. Told the rental company to substitute the chairs you selected with a different style, and informed the DJ about a special entrance dance she's choreographed for herself. I hung up, then immediately called James. I can't do this anymore, I told him, voice breaking. I'm removing Mackenzie from the wedding party. I'm done. I support whatever you decide, he said firmly. This has gone way beyond normal family tension. I drafted a clear, direct email to Mackenzie, copying my parents. Due to the ongoing issues with wedding planning, I've decided it would be best if you step down as maid of honor. You're still welcome to attend as a guest, but Rachel will be taking over maid of honor duties. I've already notified our wedding coordinator of this change, and shall be the only person authorized to communicate with vendors moving forward. The response was nuclear. My phone exploded with calls and texts from both Mackenzie and my parents. I silenced notifications and spent the evening at James' parents' house, finding solace in Diana's calm presence as she helped me contact vendors to implement password protection on all our wedding arrangements. For 3 weeks, I maintained no contact with my immediate family. During this time, I discovered unexpected support from my Aunt Catherine, my mother's older sister, who called out of the blue. I've watched this dynamic play out your entire life, she told me over coffee. My sister has always enabled Mackenzie's behavior, just like our mother did with her. I should have said something years ago, but it's a painful pattern to break. For the first time, I found an ally who truly understood the complexity of my family situation, not just sympathizing from the outside, but recognizing it from within. 6 weeks before the wedding, my father called. His voice sounded tired, conciliatory. Abby, we need to talk about all this. Can you come to the house this weekend, just to clear the air? I hesitated, torn between hope for resolution and fear of another ambush. I'll come. I finally agreed, but James is coming with me. That's fine, Dad said quickly. Saturday at noon. When James and I pulled up to my childhood home that Saturday, I immediately noticed several unfamiliar cars in the driveway and along the street. James squeezed my hand. We can leave anytime you want, he reminded me. Just say the word. The moment we walked in, my suspicions were confirmed. The living room was filled with family members, my parents, Mackenzie eyes dramatically red-rimmed. Both sets of grandparents, 2 uncles, and several cousins. What is this? I asked, stopping short in the entryway. My mother stepped forward. We felt a family intervention was necessary. Your behavior has gotten out of hand, Abigail. My behavior, I repeated incredulously. Mackenzie dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. You've been so cruel to me, Abby. Excluding me from your wedding planning, humiliating me in front of everyone at your bridal shower, accusing me of sabotage when I've only tried to help. One by one, family members began sharing concerns about my treatment of Mackenzie. It became clear they'd heard a heavily edited version of events, with Mackenzie cast as the devoted sister whose every good intention I'd maliciously twisted. James stood rigid beside me, his jaw clenched so tight I worried for his teeth. When my grandmother suggested I might be experiencing pre-wedding anxiety that's making you paranoid, he finally broke his silence. With all due respect, he said, his normally gentle voice sharp with controlled anger, I've witnessed Mackenzie's behavior firsthand. She deliberately undermined venue bookings, attempted to change wedding colors behind Abby's back, and misrepresented herself to vendors. These aren't misunderstandings or paranoia. My father raised his hands in a placating gesture. We understand emotions are running high, but family should come first. We just want to find a way forward. And what does that look like to you, Dad? I asked wearily. My mother jumped in. For starters, reinstating Mackenzie as maid of honor. She's devastated by your decision. That's not happening, I stated firmly. Abby, my father said, his voice taking on the reasonable tone he used when negotiating. We've always supported you. Remember when we helped with your college application fees? And now we're contributing to your wedding. This was the opening to the real purpose of the intervention. As my mother quickly revealed, "About our contribution," she said, not quite meeting my eyes. "We've had some unexpected expenses come up. Mackenzie's graduate school tuition was due, and you used my wedding fund for Mackenzie's tuition." The pieces clicked into place. "The money you promised that I've been counting on for deposits is gone, not gone," my father hedged. "Just temporarily allocated elsewhere. We can still help, just not as much as we originally discussed." The betrayal was staggering. Wed based our entire wedding budget on their promised contribution, which they'd insisted on making despite James' parents offering to help. James took a step forward. "Let me make sure I understand. You promised Abby financial support for her wedding. She made commitments to vendors based on that promise. And now, weeks before the wedding, you've given that money to Mackenzie instead." "Education is an investment," my mother defended. "Wedding expenses are just frivolous." "Then you should have been honest from the beginning," James replied, his voice cold. "Not made promises you had no intention of keeping." He turned to me. "We're leaving." As we stood to go, Mackenzie played her final card. "If you leave now, Abby, you're choosing him over your family. Is that really what you want?" I looked at her tear-streaked face, so practiced in its performance of victimhood, and felt a strange sense of clarity. "Yes," I said simply. "That's exactly what I want." In the car, I broke down completely. The financial blow was significant. We'd need to scale back drastically or postpone, but the emotional devastation was worse. I'd finally stood my ground, and the result was exactly what I'd feared: total rejection. "What am I going to do?" I sobbed as James drove aimlessly, giving me space to fall apart. "Well, figure it out," he promised. "We can simplify, postpone, whatever you need. But your parents have already booked flights for your relatives, the invitations are sent. The deposits." My phone rang. Aunt Catherine. I answered on speakerphone. "I just heard what happened," she said without preamble. "I'm so sorry, Abby. This is unconscionable. You know about the money?" I asked, surprised at how quickly the news had traveled. "Your mother called to justify herself," Catherine explained. "Listen, I want to help. I've been putting money aside for years, hoping you'd eventually break free from this toxic pattern. Consider it a long overdue intervention on my part." Her generosity left me speechless, but it was her, understanding her validation of my experience, that finally began to heal what had been broken inside me for so long. The 2 months before our wedding transformed into a crash course in boundaries, support systems, and wedding replanning. With Aunt Catherine's financial help and James' parents covering some additional expenses, we were able to preserve most of our original vision while making strategic adjustments. Our first action was implementing what James jokingly called Operation Wedding Lockdown. I officially notified all vendors in writing that Rachel was now the maid of honor and the only person besides James and me authorized to make changes. Our coordinator created password protection for all arrangements, and we removed Mackenzie's contact information from every vendor's file. "I know this is unusual," I told our coordinator apologetically. "Actually, it's not," she replied with a knowing look. "Family drama is part of my job description. You're not even in my top 10 wedding crises this year." Her matter-of-fact acceptance was oddly comforting. The next step was harder: formally uninviting Mackenzie from the bridal party. I sent a brief, clear email. "After careful consideration, I've decided you will not be part of the wedding party. Given recent events, I believe this is best for everyone. You and our parents are still welcome to attend as guests if you choose to support our marriage respectfully." My mother's response was immediate and predictable. "If Mackenzie isn't in the wedding party, none of us will attend. I won't sit by and watch you disrespect your sister this way. When you come to your senses and apologize, well, discuss whether we can still make it." I showed the email to James, expecting to feel the familiar ache of rejection. Instead, I felt an unexpected lightness. They're really giving me an out. I realized aloud. They think this is a punishment, but it's actually a freedom. James read the email again and nodded slowly. "What do you want to do?" I think I want to call their bluff. If they come as respectful guests. If they don't, that's their choice." With the immediate family drama somewhat contained, we focused on creating a celebration surrounded by people who genuinely cared about us. Rachel stepped into the maid of honor role with enthusiasm, coordinating with the other bridesmaids to reorganize responsibilities. Taylor helped revise our seating chart to accommodate the potential absence of my immediate family. During this time, I had several illuminating conversations with Aunt Catherine, who provided insights into my family's multi-generational patterns. "Your grandmother did the same thing to your mother that Karen does to you," she explained over dinner at her house. Nothing was ever good enough. While I was put on a pedestal, it created this desperate need in Karen to have her own golden child Mackenzie and scapegoat you. But why continue the cycle? If it hurt her, why do it to me? Because acknowledging how damaging it was would mean confronting her own pain and her mother's failings. It's easier to normalize it as just how families are than to break the pattern. These conversations helped me understand my family dynamics without excusing the behavior. I began working with a therapist who specialized in family systems, which gave me tools to process my experiences and establish healthier patterns for my future. 3 weeks before the wedding, the fifth betrayal emerged. A cousin forwarded me screenshots from a private Instagram account created in my name, filled with unflattering photos of me and captions expressing cold feet and doubts about James. The account had been following family members and childhood friends, many of whom believed it was genuinely mine. The digital fingerprints were unmistakable. Several photos were ones only Mackenzie would have had access to. With Rachel's help, we reported the account and got it removed, then sent a mass email to our guest list clarifying the situation. "Your sister is beyond toxic." Rachel fumed as we worked damage control. "This is actually defamation. I'm just relieved we caught it," I said, exhausted by the endless creativity of Mackenzie's sabotage attempts. The final planning weeks passed in a blur of confirmations, last-minute adjustments, and increasingly desperate texts from my mother, as she realized I wasn't going to capitulate. James' parents hosted us for dinner regularly, creating a nurturing space where wedding talk was interspersed with family stories and genuine interest in our lives beyond the ceremony. "Whatever happens with your family," Diana told me the week before the wedding, "you're already part of ours. That doesn't change after the ceremony, it just becomes official." Her words were the balm I needed as we headed into the wedding weekend, still unsure whether my parents and Mackenzie would make an appearance or maintain their boycott. The evening before our wedding dawned clear and perfect, as if nature itself was celebrating with us. The rehearsal at our venue went smoothly, with Aunt Catherine stepping in to fill my mother's traditional role. James' brother Michael walked me down the aisle for practice, a backup plan wed arranged in case my father maintained his boycott. "You're going to be a beautiful bride," the officiant told me after we finished. "And this ceremony will be just as meaningful surrounded by people who truly support your marriage." By 7 o'clock, wed moved to the rehearsal dinner at an upscale Italian restaurant near the venue. James' parents had reserved a private room, decorated with subtle touches that matched our wedding colors. The atmosphere was relaxed and joyful, with about 30 close friends and family members mingling over cocktails before dinner. I was mid-conversation with James' grandmother when a commotion at the entrance caught everyone's attention. My stomach dropped as I recognized the voices. My parents and Mackenzie had arrived, completely uninvited. "Sorry, we're late," my mother announced, as if they'd been expected all along. Traffic was terrible coming from the city. The room fell awkwardly silent. James immediately appeared at my side, his hand steady at the small of my back. "Karen, Richard." Diana stepped forward with remarkable composure. "This is a surprise. We weren't expecting you tonight." "Well, we couldn't miss our daughter's rehearsal dinner," my mother replied with a tight smile. "Family is family, after all." I noticed Mackenzie wasn't a lone shed, brought a man I'd never seen before, who stood uncomfortably at her side. "Who's your friend, Mackenzie?" I asked, attempting civility despite the ambush. Mackenzie's face lit up with the manic energy I recognized as her preparing for a dramatic announcement. "This is Derek, my fiancé." The calculated timing couldn't have been more obvious. Conversations halted as heads turned toward us. "Your fiancé," I repeated. "I didn't know you were seeing anyone, seriously. It was a whirlwind romance," she gushed, flashing a modest solitaire diamond. "He proposed last weekend." We were going to wait to announce, but I just couldn't keep it in any longer. My father cleared his throat. We were thinking, since we're all gathered for a celebration anyway, maybe we could make this a dual engagement party? Save everyone having to get together again in a few months. The audacity was breathtaking. Jameis' brother Michael, who'd been watching the situation unfold with increasing disbelief, stepped forward. "Mr. and Mrs. Miller," he said with surprising authority for his 24 years. "I understand you're excited about your daughter's engagement, but this evening is specifically to celebrate James and Abby before their wedding tomorrow. Perhaps another time would be more appropriate for a separate celebration." "I don't think you understand," my mother began, her voice taking on the sharp edge I knew well. "We're family. We're simply suggesting I understand perfectly." Michael interrupted politely but firmly. "And as the best man, it's my responsibility to ensure tonight goes according to plan. If you'd like to stay and celebrate James and Abby, you're welcome as guests. If you have other plans, we understand." My mother's face flushed dark red. "Abigail, are you going to let him speak to us this way? After we made the effort to come tonight?" Every eye in the room turned to me, waiting for my response. The old Abby would have accommodated, apologized, smoothed things over, but I wasn't that person anymore. "Yes," I said simply. "Michael is right. Tonight is about our wedding. If you'd like to stay and respect that, you're welcome. If not, well, see you tomorrow at the ceremony." Mackenzie's face contorted with fury. "This is exactly why I hate being your sister. Everything always has to be about you." "Actually," James interjected calmly, "our wedding is supposed to be about us. Just like your engagement should be about you and Derek, is it? We'd be happy to celebrate that another time." My father, sensing they'd miscalculated, attempted damage control. "Perhaps we should go. Clearly we've caused some tension, and that wasn't our intention." "Wasn't it?" I asked quietly, meeting his eyes directly. He looked away first. As they turned to leave, Mackenzie fired a parting shot. "Don't expect us tomorrow. Some family you turned out to be." The door closed behind them, and the room remained silent for several heavy seconds. Then Jameis' uncle broke the tension. "Well, I think I need another drink after that. Anyone else?" Nervous laughter rippled through the room, and conversations gradually resumed, but I couldn't shake the confrontation so easily. Excusing myself, I slipped out to the restaurant's small courtyard garden, gulping the cool evening air. James found me there a few minutes later, wrapping his suit jacket around my shoulders. "You okay?" he asked softly. "I think I will be," I said, surprising myself with how true it felt. "I'm just processing. They actually tried to hijack our rehearsal dinner into Mackenzie's engagement party. It's so absurd, it's almost funny." "Almost," he agreed, kissing my temple. "You handled it beautifully. I'm proud of you. Do you think they'll really boycott tomorrow?" "I don't know," he admitted. "But either way, we're getting married surrounded by people who love us and support our relationship. That's what matters." We returned to the dinner, where Diana and Catherine had smoothly redirected the evening back to its intended purpose. During toasts, Michael earned cheers with a diplomatic reference to overcoming obstacles on the path to true partnership. And Rachel brought me to tears with her speech about watching me grow into someone who finally knows her own worth. Later, back in my hotel room, I broke down despite the successful recovery of the evening. The reality that my parents might actually skip my wedding hit hard. What if they really don't come? I sobbed to Rachel. Who'd come to check on me? Then they'll miss one of the most important days in their daughter's life because they couldn't make it about themselves, she said firmly. And that will be their loss, not yours. Diana and Catherine had developed a security plan for the wedding day, with specific instructions for the venue staff about who was permitted where. As I finally drifted to sleep, I realized I'd done everything possible to protect our day. The rest was out of my control. My wedding day began with surprising serenity. I woke in my hotel suite to sunshine streaming through the curtains and the distant sound of birds at the nearby lake. For a few peaceful moments, I simply breathed and centered myself in the knowledge that, by sunset, I would be married to the love of my life. The tranquility lasted until approximately 9:17 a.m. when my phone pinged with a security update from Michael, who had volunteered to coordinate with venue staff. Heads up! M+ parents spotted entering venue with large garment bags. Security redirected them to general guest area per protocol. All good for now. My heart raced as I showed the message to Rachel, who was arranging mimosas and breakfast pastries for the bridesmaids. They actually showed up, I said, unsure whether to feel relieved or anxious. Rachel's eyes narrowed. Large garment bags? Plural. Before we could speculate further, my bridesmaids began arriving, filling the suite with excited chatter and genuine warmth. For the next few hours, I was pleasantly distracted by hairstyling, makeup application, and the exchange of thoughtful gifts with my bridal party. Diana and Aunt Catherine stopped by with a something-borrowed pearl bracelet that had been in Jame's family for generations, bringing me to happy tears. By early afternoon, I was fully dressed in my wedding gown, feeling more beautiful and confident than I'd ever felt in my life. The photographer had just finished capturing some getting-ready shots when rapid knocking at the suite door interrupted our champagne toast. "Abby." Taylor called through the door, her voice tense. "We have a situation." Rachel opened the door to reveal Taylor looking uncharacteristically flustered. "Mackenzie's downstairs in a white dress. Like, a wedding dress, white dress. Your mom's with her. They're demanding to see you before the ceremony." The suite erupted in outraged exclamations from my bridesmaids. Diana, who had been adjusting my veil, went completely still. "Where are they now?" she asked with dangerous calm. "The coordinator has them in the small meeting room downstairs. But Mackenzie's making a scene. Shay's saying she needs to speak to Abby urgently about a family emergency." I met Rachel's eyes in the mirror. No real emergency would require a white gown. "What do you want to do?" she asked. "We can keep them contained. You don't have to see them." I considered my options. Ignoring them might escalate the situation further. Confronting them would be unpleasant but might resolve things before the ceremony. "I'll see them," I decided, "but not alone." Rachel nodded firmly. Obviously. What happened next unfolded like a carefully choreographed disaster. My bridesmaids formed a protective phalanx around me as we made our way downstairs to the meeting room. Diana and Catherine flanked me like elegant sentinels, their faces set with determination. As we approached the door, we could hear Mackenzie's voice rising in pitch. "I don't understand why I can't just talk to my sister. This is ridiculous." The coordinator spotted our approach, and her eyes widened in alarm. "Miss Miller, I'm so sorry." I tried to explain they need to respect the schedule, but "It's okay," I assured her. "I'll handle it from here." The door opened to reveal exactly what I'd feared. Mackenzie standing in the center of the room wearing a white ball gown, so elaborate it could only be described as a wedding dress. Beside her, my mother sat clutching her purse, while my father stood uncomfortably by the window. The sight was so absurdly close to what I'd imagined in my worst scenarios that I almost laughed. "Almost. What are you doing?" I asked, my voice steadier than I expected. Mackenzie turned, her face transforming from petulant to concerned so quickly it would have been impressive if it weren't so calculated. "Abby!" "Thank goodness. I've been trying to talk to you all day." She stepped toward me, the massive skirt rustling dramatically. "I need to speak with you privately. It's about James. Whatever you have to say, you can say in front of everyone here," I replied, gesturing to my assembled support system. "Fine," she huffed, glancing nervously at my father. "Abby, I don't think you should marry James. I've heard things about him from reliable sources." "What things?" I asked flatly. "I can't say specifically," she hedged. "But I'm worried about you. I think you're making a mistake, and as your sister, I had to try one last time to stop you. That's what family does, protects each other." My mother stood, moving to Mackenzie's side. "Honey, we're concerned too. This whole wedding has been so rushed, and the way Jame's family has turned you against us." Rachel made a strangled sound of disbelief behind me. Diana stepped forward, but I raised my hand slightly, stopping her. This was my moment. "Let's be clear about what's happening here," I said, my voice quiet but firm. "You've shown up at my wedding wearing a white gown. You've invented vague concerns about my fiancé without any specifics. And now you're trying to convince me to call off my wedding an hour before the ceremony. I'm just trying to protect you, Mackenzie insisted, tears welling in her perfectly made-up eyes. And you're attacking me for caring! Mom, do you see how she treats me? My mother's face hardened. Abigail, your sister made a special effort to be here despite how you've treated her. The least you could do is listen. And frankly, I don't understand why you're making such a fuss about her dress. It's cream, not white. The dress was unmistakably bridal white, with a sweetheart neckline suspiciously similar to mine and a beaded bodice that caught the light with every movement. It wasn't just a white dress. It was a wedding gown. Rachel stepped forward, subtly positioning herself between the photographer and Mackenzie. No pictures of this, she murmured to the bewildered woman, who nodded in understanding. Mom, I said, the single syllable heavy with decades of disappointment. The dress is white. Mackenzie is trying to sabotage my wedding day, just like she's tried to sabotage every important moment in my life. And once again, you're helping her do it. That's ridiculous. You're being dramatic and selfish, as usual. My mother snapped. Aunt Catherine, who had remained silent until now, moved to stand beside me. Karen, enough. Look at what you're doing. Look at what you're wearing. For the first time, I noticed my mother's outfit, a pale silvery gown that complemented Mackenzie's dress like a planned mother of the bride ensemble. The coordination was unmistakable. Mackenzie needed support, my mother defended. After everything Abby has put her through, stop. Diana's voice cut through the room like a steel blade. This has gone far enough. As mother of the groom, I'm asking you to either change into appropriate attire and join the ceremony as respectful guests, or leave the premises immediately. You can't throw us out. Mackenzie shrieked. We're family. Actually, the coordinator interjected from the doorway, as the contracted clients for this event, Mr. Patterson and Miss Miller, have final say over guest attendance. And security has been briefed accordingly. My father, who had been watching the scene unfold with increasing discomfort, finally spoke. Karen, Mackenzie, maybe we should go. Richard. My mother turned to him in betrayal. Look at us, he said quietly. Look at what we're doing. This isn't right. For a brief moment, I glimpsed what might have been genuine shame in his expression, but my mother grabbed his arm, her fingers digging visibly into his sleeve. Fine, well, go. But don't come crying to us when this marriage falls apart. She looked directly at me, her eyes cold. You've made your choice, Abigail. Yes, I agreed calmly. I have. Aunt Catherine and Diana physically escorted them from the room, while the coordinator radioed security to ensure they left the premises. As the door closed behind them, I stood motionless, absorbing what had just happened. Abby. Rachel touched my arm gently. Are you okay? The question hung in the air for a moment as I took inventory of my emotions. There was sadness, certainly, anger, disappointment, but overriding everything was a surprising sense of clarity and peace. I'm okay, I said, and meant it. Actually, I'm better than okay. I'm free. Back upstairs, as my makeup was touched up and my veil readjusted, I felt lighter than I had in years. The ceremony was moments away, and despite, or perhaps because of the dramatic confrontation, I was filled with certainty about the path ahead. When it was time to walk down the aisle, Jame's father, Robert, was waiting to escort me, looking distinguished and genuinely honored by the role. Thank you, I whispered as we prepared to make our entrance. No thanks needed, he replied warmly. It's my privilege. The ceremony was everything I'd dreamed: meaningful, intimate, and focused entirely on the love between James and me. As we exchanged vows under a flower-covered arch with the lake shimmering behind us, I felt no absence, only the presence of people who truly celebrated our union. At the reception entrance, there was one final moment of tension when the staff radioed that my parents and Mackenzie were attempting to join the celebration. But by then, fueled by post-ceremony champagne and the absolute certainty of my decisions, I simply smiled and said, "Security knows what to do." They were escorted off the property without disrupting our first dance, cake cutting, or the joyful speeches from people who genuinely wished us well. And as James and I departed that evening through a tunnel of sparklers held by our real family, the one wed chosen, I felt nothing but gratitude for the path that had led us here, difficult though it had been. 1 year has passed since our wedding day, and the journey has been both harder and more beautiful than I could have imagined. The initial weeks after the ceremony were difficult. Despite their behavior, cutting ties with my family left an ache that would randomly assert itself at unexpected moments, seeing a mother and daughter shopping together, hearing a familiar family song on the radio, or celebrating our first holiday season as newlyweds without the traditions I'd grown up with. I maintained complete silence with my parents and Mackenzie for 3 months. During that time, James and I settled into our new home, a charming craftsman-style house halfway between both our workplaces. We focused on building the foundations of our marriage without the constant backdrop of family drama, and I continued regular therapy sessions to process my complicated grief over relationships that had been unhealthy but were still significant parts of my life. The first contact came from my father, a brief email apologizing for his role in the wedding day disaster. The apology was limited in scope, focusing on that single event rather than the lifetime of enabling that preceded it, but it was something. After discussing it with James and my therapist, I responded with a carefully worded email outlining what a future relationship might look like. Acknowledgement of past patterns, respect for my boundaries, and acceptance of consequences when those boundaries were crossed. My mother's eventual outreach was predictably different, a text message around the holidays that simply read, "Family should be together this time of year. We miss you." No acknowledgement, no apology, just the expectation that time would erase all offenses and we'd return to the dysfunctional status quo. I responded politely but firmly that I wasn't ready for a reunion without meaningful changes. Mackenzie's approach was perhaps the most surprising. Her engagement mysteriously ended shortly after our wedding. I later learned from cousins that Derek had witnessed her behavior at our rehearsal dinner and recognized the red flags. Her subsequent identity crisis led her to therapy, where she was apparently beginning to recognize her role in our family dynamics. Her message to me was awkwardly worded but contained something I'd never heard from her before. "I'm sorry I hurt you. I'm working on understanding why I did those things." I remain cautiously optimistic but firmly grounded in my new reality. We've had 2 brief, supervised family gatherings in neutral locations, once for my grandfather's birthday and once for a casual coffee meeting. Each was tense but civil, with my mother clearly struggling to respect the new boundaries, while my father seemed almost relieved by the clearer relationship parameters. The most profound changes have been internal. I no longer flinch when my phone rings, anticipating crisis or criticism. I've stopped constantly monitoring others' emotions at the expense of my own. Most importantly, I've recognized that family isn't defined by blood, but by how people treat each other consistently over time. James has been my rock throughout this evolution, never pushing me toward either reconciliation or permanent estrangement, simply supporting whatever path felt healthiest. His parents have become the family I always wished for. Diana calls regularly just to chat, Robert helps with home improvement projects, and their home remains a safe haven when we need it. Aunt Catherine has maintained her role as the bridge between my old family and new life, providing context without pressure and love without conditions. Rachel and I are closer than ever, her loyalty during the wedding crisis cementing a friendship that will last a lifetime. The biggest development came 2 months ago when we discovered I'm pregnant with our first child. The news has brought both joy and complexity, raising questions about what role my parents and Mackenzie will play in our child's life. James and I have agreed on clear guidelines. Our child will only have relationships with adults who model healthy, respectful behavior. No exceptions, regardless of blood ties. My mother has already begun testing these boundaries, sending baby gifts and making presumptions about her future grandmother role without addressing the underlying issues between us. Each time, I've responded with calm clarity. Before you can have a relationship with my child, we need to heal our relationship first. The path forward isn't entirely clear, but for the first time in my life, I'm not contorting myself to accommodate others' dysfunctions. I've learned that setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's necessary for genuine connection. I've discovered that standing up for yourself doesn't mean losing family. Sometimes it means finding your real one. Sometimes, when people dismiss you as overreacting, they're actually terrified of acknowledging their own behavior. My mother told me to stop overreacting my entire life, until the day my sister tried to hijack my wedding in a white dress, making the dysfunction so obvious that no one could deny it anymore. And in that moment of crisis came clarity that changed everything. Have you ever been told you were overreacting when you were simply setting a reasonable boundary? Share your experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more journeys of growth and healing. Remember that you deserve relationships that celebrate rather than diminish you. Thank you for listening to my story, and I wish you strength in your own path to healthy, loving connections.